14 Bannerman Road is where Sarah Jane Smith lives.
And 14 Bannerman Road is the name of my podcast about it. This time, Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane, Parts 1 and 2, both written by Gareth Roberts, the writer of Episode 1 and co-writer of Episode 0, and both directed by Graham Harper, with Part 1 first broadcast on the 29th of October 2007, and Part 2 first broadcast on the 5th of November 2007. These intros are only getting longer. First thing we need to say before we start is that this first episode is broadcast 2 days before Halloween. So you think, oh, is that going to play a part? We're going to get some spooky vibes. And then we do a cold open, as usual. Skateboarding, and it takes you slightly by surprise. It's not your normal cold open. But Luke is wondering what the point of skateboarding is. So Clyde's trying to show him, and he's trying to show off and be cool, and he's falling over. So Sarah's a bit worried about him. And Maria mentions that he's faced far worse than falling off a skateboard, and she brings up all the aliens that he's fought in broad daylight, because they like to just mention all this stuff in broad daylight and not get caught, luckily. And Sarah says, yeah, things have changed since I've met you. I've become all mumsy now, which is, like, it's nice that she's recognised it, and it's a nice character change for her. And Alan says that it's a good look because she was a bit frosty when they first met, and then Sarah's mock offended by it. And Alan shows off his skateboarding skills to Clyde, and Clyde can't believe it because Alan's too old. And it's a very found family day out with the kids. Like, Alan is the dad, of course, of Maria, but now Chrissy's gone. Sarah's sort of taking in this mum role, and of course she's the mum to Luke. I mean, Clyde, I don't know, I think his dad left. I'm not sure what's up with his mum. His mum gets a little bit of a mention at the end of part 2. Or, well, in part 2. But we don't see her at all. And so, yeah, it's really like they're the family and they're out skateboarding. And it disarms you, right? Because then suddenly you've got Sarah sort of feeling a shiver, and the camera changes. The entire camera throughout this whole episode is different. Graham Harper's got a different sort of style, and I think it's just a lot more handheld. So that throws you off a little bit. But the music really starts swelling, and you glimpse a cloaked figure in the background with like a hint of a scary face underneath. And they take some photos and everything, and you know, Sarah's just sort of trying to shrug it off and ignore it, and then roll titles. So they've come back home, and Alan is a bit suspicious of Maria spending so much time with Sarah Jane, but not in the sense that the secret's going to get blown, which is funny. And Clyde's now gone home after dissing Alan some more, and we get, you know, at the start of the episode, they really hit us suddenly with this one. We get the Mr. Smith, I need you, and the fanfare, and he comes out the wall. And there's a meteor that's coming to mess up the Earth, and it's in a radar blind spot, so no authorities know. But Mr. Smith can just deal with it fine. So Maria is shocked by how blasé Sarah and Luke are about this. But they're like, well, no, it's really nothing to worry about. It just sort of happens now and again. Mr. Smith will sort us out. And it makes you wonder if Unit or Torchwood would be aware. This is a slight issue of the Russell T Davies era, with all its different institutions sort of happening simultaneously, whose job it is to do these certain things, and if they're 100% aware of each other. But Maria says, well, hey, nobody's going to know that we've saved the world, that, you know, Mr. Smith has bounced this meteor away. And Sarah says, yeah, I like it like that, that's the point. And so it's sort of, it's dealt with so quickly that it feels like just like a mini little side plot. Like, oh, this isn't the focus of the show. But haha, it comes up again later. And it's sort of set up to highlight how Maria still isn't quite settled into everything that's going on. So Sarah sends Luke to make some tea so she can have a chat with Maria. And she gets out an artifact. She pushes a unit book aside, and I didn't actually spy who'd written it, so I looked it up. Turns out Sarah Jane wrote it. She's written a book about UNIT, which makes you question what's in this book, just revealing a lot of UNIT secrets. So, I'll look into that a little bit more. But the artifact is a cube from a Veran soothsayer, and I want it because even before remembering that there was a cube in this episode, I want to collect Doctor Who cubes. I want the hypercube that the Corsair had. I want the cubes from the Power of Three. I want cubes. I want Doctor Who cubes. Now I want the Veran Soothsayer's cube. But I can't. I swear there was another one I wanted as well, but I can't remember. But I like it. It's such a little tactile little thing, and it glows, and it's all carved, and it moves, and it's great. It's just the goblin in me coming out of, oh, I want a shiny thing. So the soothsayer told Sarah Jane, because they're sort of off camera, they've like helped the soothsayer get home a few weeks ago or whatever. And the soothsayer was very thankful for this and gave Sarah Jane the cube and said, give this to the person that you trust the most and remember. That was the only thing the soothsayer really said about it, just remember. So Sarah says, hey, Maria is the person that I trust most. Here you go, Maria. Look after this cube. Don't tell Luke. And I suppose Maria has sort of... She was there first. She was there before Luke. Even if only by, like half a day or whatever. But when you sort of look at it as like, hey, I'm giving you a gift and I'm giving you this gift to cheer you up and everything, it's quite sweet. It's quite sweet. It's not a dig at Luke. It's just quite a nice, sweet thing that she's done for Maria. And so Sarah Jane says, hey, open it. And Maria tries for about 2 seconds and then declares it impossible. Which is accurate, actually. It is meant to be, well, tricky. Not impossible, but tricky to open. And Sarah Jane says that she hasn't been able to open it. But she got Mr. Smith to scan it, and it turns out it's empty. And so they guess that the point is actually just to get it open. It's like a puzzle box. And Maria stays up. She takes it home. She stays up at night trying to open the cube. Stays up past her bedtime. She manages to twiddle the corner of it. And her dad tells her to go to sleep. And she's got her hair down for maybe the first time. And my brain went, Tracy Beaker. And it's just, like later series Tracy Beaker when she's got all her hair. Because it's the first time we've seen Maria just like with her hair not all tied up. And I'm like, oh, she got a lot of hair. She got a lot of curly hair. But, huge juxtaposition from the lightheartedness of, oh, look at her hair. That hooded figure is now roaming the streets of Bannerman Road. That doesn't make sense. He's roaming Bannerman Road. He's roaming the streets of Ealing. And you can see he's right, he is terrifying. I need to point out that this hooded figure that is roaming is utterly terrifying. But you get a little sort of peek under the robe. It looks like he's got some Doc Martens on. He's like robe, scary face. Robe, 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 robe. Stompy boots. And I like the boots, and we've got good angles on him. We've got our Dutch angles. Everybody cheer. There they are. And now everybody scream, because we've got a full face shot. And the face is terrifying. There are no features on this face besides a mouth. But there's like a hint of where they would be. There's like a little sort of sunken in bit for eyes. And like the tiniest of bumps for nose, but there are no eyes or nose. You can assume there's no ears. There's just a mouth. And there's just this sort of prosthetic, uncanny valley skin. And that is his face. It is horrific. Who thought this would be a good idea for kids to see? I love it. I love that they've decided to do this and just go, you know what? Full on scary. Full on terrify him. That's wow. Because the design of this hooded figure, the trickster, has stuck with me as an iconic sort of villain, throughout the years. Just because of how horrific it is. So Maria's got the box a little bit more open, but doesn't seem to have achieved a lot from that. And outside, the trickster points one silver-clawed finger. He's got like a ring, and the ring is like a claw. It's like a silver claw, and he raises his finger, and he points it at 13 Bannerman Road. Sarah Jane's car disappears with like quite a neat CGI effect. It looks pretty good, and the cube glows slightly, and we get a jump scare zoom into the trickster's face, which like made me even me jump. Right, I can imagine as a 7-year-old, I'm crying by this point. The trickster raises his finger higher, and all the lights in 13 Bannerman Road go out. Maria wakes up and she's shouting for her dad, and she says that it's been a bad dream. And you wonder slightly, was she dreaming of the trickster? Because it seems implied that that's not a dream, that's happening in real life. The glowing cube has now fallen under her bed. And they go, okay, it's just a bad dream, go back to bed. Morning time, Alan's got his own skateboard down. Maria is also thinking he's too old for this. Right? Let the man skate. Let the man relive his glory days when he was king of the concrete, whatever it was, 1990, whatever. Let him, let him stop ruining his fun. And Maria notices that there's some new plants, like on the windowsill or whatever. And Alan says, "Oh yeah, I got them from Andrea." And Maria is very confused. It's like, who's Andrea? And Alan's like, "Oh, you're being daft, you know." And then Maria mentions Luke. And now it's Alan's turn to be a bit confused, like, oh, who's this Luke? Is he a new kid from school? And he says it in a way like, oh, you got a crush on him. And he seems a bit too preoccupied with his skateboard. So Maria goes over to 30 Bannerman Road. We see a new car in the drive. And she knocks on the door. And there's a new lady in the house. And this new Andrea lady knows Maria, but has no idea what she's on about when she mentions Sarah Jane and Luke. And she's a bit sort of baffled and concerned. But in this sort of polite British way, it's sort of you get away with a lot of this by just going, oh yeah, it's British. Like they don't want to question it, they don't want to bring it up. Rather than being like, I don't know who this Sarah Jane is, what are you on about, you mad woman? They're just like, oh no, sorry, don't know. They don't want to question that Maria's going absolutely mad. They're just like, oh, she's just being silly, of course. So yeah, Andrea's got no idea what's going on. So Maria runs back into her house, like, yo, Dad, okay, things are weird. Who is this Andrea across the road? What's happened to Sarah Jane? What's happened to Luke? And Alan's going, I don't know who Sarah Jane is. So Maria's like, okay, we took photos yesterday. So we like we were with her yesterday, we took photos. Let me show you the photos. Andrea's in the photos now. Andrea is in those photos instead of Sarah Jane. Luke is no longer in the photos. This is now a psychological horror. This is now watch Maria lose her mind as she is the only one who remembers who Sarah Jane and Luke are. So she pulls out her phone, she's looking through her contacts. Sarah Jane, Luke, Clyde's numbers, they're not in there. It scrolls quite fast, but I think I spot the number for someone called Brick. I want to know more about who this Brick person is that's in Maria's phone. But she remembers Clyde's number, which she seems to sort of, under her breath, whisper is 00700900700 nonsense. It's just completely made up. But she phones Clyde up, and he doesn't know why she has his number. It's like, okay, we're not friends. I just know of you from school, and I bumped into you at the skate park yesterday. I don't know who this Luke guy that you're talking about is. And Maria realizes that not only now, okay, Sarah Jane and Luke have disappeared. That's a big issue. But now, without them, because Mr. Smith didn't bounce the meteor away. He was like, tomorrow, what's going to happen is the meteor's going to come and I will bounce it away. So it hadn't happened yet. It is now the tomorrow. So Maria realizes with no Sarah Jane around, probably no Mr. Smith around, the meteor might still be coming. And so she runs back to 13 Bannerman Road. And I start to wonder how the Bane and the Selene and the Gorgons haven't taken over, like in Turn Left. You know, the Doctor Who episode Turn Left, when there's like the beetle and it produces the alternate reality where the Doctor died, and then all of the aliens that would have been stopped by the Doctor haven't been stopped. I start to wonder how all of the aliens that would have been stopped by Sarah Jane, what's happened to them. And actually, funny thing about Turn Left, the Time Beetle that was in Turn Left, they mention, was part of the Tricksters Brigade. Hey. And now, I'm fairly certain that at this point, Maria says 13 Bannerman Road. They've locked it in now that Sarah Jane lives at 13 Bannerman Road. So why did it say 21 before? She runs straight past Andrea in the house, and goes up to the attic. The attic is like mostly empty. There's a few boxes in there, a load of dust. It's so weird to see this set just like redone as just a normal attic. It's great. She goes up to the wall where Mr. Smith would be. There's just a mirror there instead now. And she says, Mr. Smith, I need you. And it does nothing. Which explains why we've had the Mr. Smith, I need you at the very start of the episode, because it's set us up and it's primed us for that. You know, all the other episodes have as well, but they've really fit it in this episode. And the fact that it does nothing now is jarring, even though you know it's going to happen. You really just still, in your mind, you associate Mr. Smith, I need you. They've Pavlovian, you know, they've conditioned you into expecting that fanfare, and there is nothing. And Maria is very distressed because Alan's now come across the road going, okay, Maria's being a bit weird, I'll follow her over. So Alan and Andrea are standing there, and all Maria can do is say that Sarah and Luke are meant to be here, and all Alan and Andrea can do is look very concerned about her. So Alan takes her back home. There's a lot of to and fro from her home and 13 Bannerman Road, but they're literally opposite each other. But Andrea seems to have a realization about the name Sarah Jane Smith, but she keeps it to herself. So back at home, Alan is trying to convince Maria that it's only ever been Andrea. Like, things haven't changed yesterday, this is how it's been. Ever since they've moved here, he pulls out a photo album, and they're going through all these pictures, and it's Andrea. There's no Sarah Jane there. It's Andrea, and Maria is saying, no, like, something has happened. Something has happened. I am now the only one who remembers Sarah Jane and Luke. And Alan thinks she is talking absolute nonsense, but he allows her to exhaust all avenues and pull up their laptop and look up Sarah Jane on the computer. And they're going through and they're going, okay, well, there's Maria's going through and she goes, oh, there's a Sarah Jane in a Guernsey women's football team. At which point, Alan goes, ugh. I'm like, Alan, why have you gone at Guernsey women's football? Have you gone at Guernsey? In which case, why? Have you gone at women's football? In which case, I hate you. um, but Maria finds a poem written by a lady about Sarah's age, dedicated to a Sarah Jane Smith who died in 1964. And Alan goes, okay, well, this is obviously just the same name. It's not this Sarah Jane Smith that you're on about, but it's just a coincidence. But he takes Maria to the library to find newspapers from 1964, where the music is bizarrely jaunty. I don't know why it's so happy in this library, but they find an article saying that Sarah Jane Smith died from falling off a pier when she was 13, and Alan is unconvinced until the article also mentions an Andrea Yates. At this point, Maria sees the names in the article are swapping around, and she hears Sarah Jane's voice. And Alan, at this point, becomes really quite concerned that Maria is hearing voices, because, presumably he thinks that she's developing a quite serious mental illness. And he's not really as understanding as I'd normally expect. I think he's panicking now, and instead he's just really trying to convince her, no, it's not happening. There aren't any voices. I can't hear any voices. It's only ever been Andrea living across the road. I don't know who this Sarah Jane is. Please stop. Please go back to normal. My daughter, please. And Alan suggests, okay, right, well, Maria, I'm going to have to take you to the doctor. Ahoy! It's just anytime anyone mentions a doctor in the Doctor Who universe and expanded universe, it's, you can't reference any doctors anymore now, can you? Um, but at this point, Maria's like, oh, okay. And she changes her tune and she plays along with Alan now and goes, "Oh no, look, no, look, I know, Andrea. It was that bad dream last night that I had. It really freaked me out, and like I wasn't hearing voices. I needed some attention, and I made it up, and I'm sorry." And Alan, to his credit, is still, he's really quite nice about this, and he doesn't punish her, and he's not angry at her at all. He's just very happy that she's not losing her mind. And so Maria says, okay, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Andrea again. I'm going to apologize for, bursting in and saying that she doesn't live in her own house. And when she gets over to Andrea's, she then interrogates Andrea about what was in the article, because Maria's superpower is just pure dogged determination, which I love. And so Andrea has a flashback to seeing Sarah fall off that pier, and she looks traumatized and gets very angry and throws Maria out of her house. And Maria, says, this isn't your house, and this is the point at which she is now determined she is right. And she sort of shouts down Andrea and goes, no, okay, I don't know what's happened here, but I am going to put things right. This is her moment of having such a strong character, which is really great, isn't it? Just to have just such a strong young female character leading this episode and this show is brilliant. And so once Maria's gone back home, Andrea runs into her attic and digs out the cube. Not a cube, not necessarily the same cube. But she hears, remember, Andrea, remember. and she looks into the mirror that's up in the attic and sees the trickster in the mirror. And you get another zoom into his face just to completely terrify all the 7-year-olds watching. And he goes, "You forgot me, Andrea Yates. I never forgot you." And think about this for a moment from Andrea's perspective. You wake up, everything's, you've had a nice normal life, and sure, your busy mate died when you were 13, and, but it's now, say, 50 years on, and, you wake up one day, and the kid from over the road has come in and gone, "Hey, you don't live here anymore." You go up to your attic, you're thinking, "Oh, right, I'll get out my cube," and then this creepy thing with no face and just a mouth and a raspy voice and a big black hood is talking to you from a mirror. Horrific. But it's revealed that the trickster is the one that's given Andrea her cube. And Andrea is now in tears, understandably is in tears. And she's going, I can't bear the thought of what I did when I was 13. And now Maria has made me remember, it's all come back to me. How could I forget what I did? How can I forget the agreement that we made? Did you make me forget? She's saying this to the trickster. And we're thinking, oh my goodness, what did she do when she was 13? And she wants it all to stop. She wants it all to stop. She wants, I cannot deal with this grief of whatever it was I did when I was 13. So maybe if you made me forget about it, and now Maria's come around here reminding me, what if you make Maria forget about it? And the trickster says, I cannot do that. I cannot make Maria forget things, because for whatever reason, she's protected. Nor can I kill her. And Maria's like, no, I didn't say kill. I don't want you to kill. And he's like, no, I can't kill her. But I can stop her from ruining your life. I can remove her. And in one night's sleep, you'll forget me, and you'll forget her, and you'll forget everything once more. And Andrea says, okay, yes, I take up this deal. And so then she is tasked with separating Alan from Maria, because Maria needs to be alone for this to work. So, over the road at home, Maria hears Sarah again, and she sees Sarah through her bathroom mirror. But unlike with the trickster and Andrea, where they can communicate, Maria cannot communicate with Sarah Jane. She can just see her. Andrea comes over and she asks Alan, "Hey, can you help me put up a banner?" Because she's having a party at the start. Sort of the mention of Andrea with the plants. It was like, oh, then can you sign Andrea's birthday card? She's having a birthday party. So Andrea says, "Hey, can you help me put up this banner?" So then she's got him over the road, out of the way. And while he's over the road doing that, Maria's found her cube under her bed. And she goes to tell her dad about the cube, when enter, out of nowhere, Grasky shoots at her, misses, but she drops the cube, and then she's pursued by the Grasky out the back door. Alan returns, wondering where she's gone, finds the cube on the floor. The Grasky, or the Grask? I think it's the Grask. Well, the only sort of word we get for it comes from Sarah Jane in this episode, and she says the Grask, but I'm fairly certain there's another point. There's the Grosky, and I thought it was Grasky and Grosky. But either way, he's a little fella with like sort of tentacles on his head, and wearing black with a sort of taser-like gun. Right? He works for the trickster. He's been coerced into working for the trickster. And so he's pursuing Maria, and he chases her in broad daylight once again. Little alien fella running through the streets. Nobody apparently sees this. Chases her in broad daylight to a fence that she cannot climb over. She's stuck there. He then shoots at her and teleports them both away. Alan, after picking up the cube and taking it into the next room, starts doing a lot of face acting, a lot of bizarre wibbly face effects. We get a fisheye lens on him. He looks like he's about to faint. The camera starts like properly spinning, like 360. Like the top of the picture is now the bottom again, and then back round, spinning round. Maria gets removed from all the photos. You hear Chrissy, she's shouting, Alan, but you can't see her anywhere. There's this distorted version of what sounds like You Really Got Me by the Kinks playing. And you think, what is going on? And then suddenly all that stops and Chrissy is here saying that Alan left the door open, as people like to do in this show. And she says, come on, like, we got to go over the road to Andrea's party. And Alan says, yeah, okay, what about Maria? And Chrissy doesn't know who that is. And when Alan explains Maria is our kid, Chrissy says that she never wanted kids, which is oof. Ooh, that She says she doesn't have a maternal bone in her body, and like, oh, okay. There's a reason why Alan is the one that got the kid. There's a reason why Maria lives with Alan, isn't there? Because Chrissy really is. I mean, we've had hints of this before when she forgot, like, it was Maria's first day at school and all this stuff. But she does not care for Maria as much as Ellen does, and that is the most explicit statement of it. So Chrissy says that Maria doesn't exist, and then we get a zoom onto Alan's face. Graham Harper, fond of a handheld camera, fond of like slightly shaky, fond of like following people through with shots, you know, like when they move, fond of sort of more dynamic camera movement, and absolutely adores a zoom. All these zooms onto the trickster's face. Let's zoom onto Alan's face. Many zooms in. We get a shot of Maria and the Grask now on these rock platforms in space, which are really like not like this shot. They made it for this shot and this shot only, and then we never really see that again. But Maria's managed to rip the Grask's little taser things off her jacket. It's like a taser, you know, when they fire and then it's like comes out on prongs and the prongs jab into you and they're still connected by a wire. This is like the prongs jab into you and they stick to you, and now the Grask sort of hauls you along by the wire and is like using it to transport you. And so she managed to rip the little taser prongs off, and then she's immediately teleported to a pier where a guy walks by wearing 60s kind of fashion, carrying a portable radio, which is playing You Really Got Me by the Kinks, which explains the like weird music choice of that scene with Alan going wibbly, which is nice. It was playing through from the 60s. Brilliant. Love that. Maria bumps into two schoolgirls. One of them just disses her clothes. The other one is a lot more concerned and wonders whether she's lost. And they quickly introduce themselves to her. Maria says, you know, I'm Maria Jackson. I was in London. I'm not really sure where I am now. And the brunette schoolgirl says, pleased to meet you, Maria. I'm Sarah Jane Smith. Zoom in on Maria's face, credits. End of part 1. Part 2 now. I start wondering if this is a bit like Doctor Who filming, where they'd have like a Doctor Light episode and a Companion Light episode. I wonder if they've got some simultaneous filming going on, where there are scenes with Sarah Jane and Luke and Clyde, and they're all off filming those scenes. And now this sort of two-parter is a bit more of the Maria Jackson show, which I'm totally fine with. I love it. I love where it's going right now. So we resume where we left off with Andrea thinking Maria is a bit loony, and Maria quickly realizing that this is the day that Sarah Jane is meant to have died, and that she should not go on the pier under any circumstances. So like they're like on the beachfront right now, and they can break through onto the pier, which is all chained up. They should totally not do that. So Sarah Jane is trying to give Maria a chance. She's like, okay, she's come with a warning. You know, maybe we should heed the warning. But Andrea just thinks that she's absolutely mad, and she's sort of the more boisterous one, and she pulls Sarah Jane along. Grusk turns up, recaptures Maria. We get a zoom out. Ooh, that's new. If episode 1 was the episode of the zoom in, episode 2 is now the episode of the zoom out. As Sarah Jane turns around and wonders where Maria's gone. And Maria gets deposited in a completely white void. And would you look who happens to also be in this completely white void? Sarah Jane. Adult Sarah Jane, that is. Sarah Jane as we know her. Big zoom out now to emphasize that the limbo that they are in is limitless. You know, they cannot escape. It's just Sarah Jane and Maria now in limbo. And back in the real world, Alan is now trying to convince Chrissy that Maria existed, which is like, well, how do you like the taste of that medicine when Maria was trying to convince you that Sarah Jane existed? They go to Maria's room, which is now empty. She's not in the photos. You know, they pull out their own photo album. She's not in the photos. It's all very reminiscent of what was going on in part 1. And so Sarah Jane is catching up with Maria and confirms that Andrea died by falling from the pier in 1964. And Maria is saying, well, look, she's alive now. She's living in your house. And, you know, nobody on Earth now knows anything of this meteor except us. We're the only ones who can stop this, and we're trapped here. And, right, I had a whole theory that Sarah Jane, like, kind of set this up. When she felt the shiver, she was like, oh, now I need to give Maria the box so that she can remember me and she can come and save this because this is going to happen, but I can't stop it. My theory kind of fell apart when I realized that she should have just like explained it with words rather than cryptically giving her a box. She should have gone, "Hey Maria, the trickster's going to come and get me, so I need to and I can't stop him, so I need to give you this box, and you'll be the only one who can remember me," rather than just letting that happen by coincidence. Turns out, no, pure coincidence. Sarah Jane now implies that giving Maria the box was a coincidence. But she says, well, hey, maybe the soothsayer knew what was coming, and that's why the soothsayer gave me the box to give to you. There's a lot of coincidence in this episode. Like Alan picking up the box, you know, when Maria was erased, so that he continued to remember Maria, and like all that. Anyway, it's this sort of show. There's some things that you gotta shrug off in order to get through it. But Maria is then summoned by the raspy voice of the trickster, and says, "Maria, okay, stay put here because I'm going to return." And we get our sort of showdown with Sarah Jane and the trickster. When Sarah Jane asks who he is, he says that he is nothing. He has no self, and he exists only to bring disorder. And the way he talks, he calls Sarah Jane ephemeral, which is a sort of thing. In Doctor Who canon, if you will, there are like immortal transcendental beings, and like some of them like immortals and eternals, and like they're essentially the gods of the Doctor Who universe, and they are not of flesh and blood, and they're just sort of made of the fabric of space themselves. And they're most recently referenced in the episode with Jodie Whittaker and the fella with his fingers that come off. So there's all that, and there's but they go way back to like series 1 or like 2 or whatever, like of 60s Doctor Who, and like the Toymaker I think was one of them. Anyway, it's kind of implied that the Trickster is one of them. And is like it exists solely for chaos, but essentially the god of chaos. There's the gang, a couple of weeks ago were facing down some like rubber suit people that explode when you get vinegar on them. Now facing down the god of chaos. And he says that I turned away the Bane, I turned away the Slovene, and I turned away the Gorgons, and I turned away the Tin Vagabond, which was referenced in the Doctor Who episode The Satan Pit. So we get a little reference there, because that's not a thing that... Obviously all the other stuff we've seen in episodes of Sarah Jane Adventures, this is just another little reference. So they've turned them all away, so that they didn't ruin the Earth, because I need this meteor to go and destroy humanity, because meteors have no motivation. They do not destroy the Earth for profit, they do not destroy the Earth for revenge. They destroy the Earth out of pure, blind chance. This is the most chaotic ending that the human race can ever have. And I thrive off that, because chaos is my food and my blood and my other thing that I can't remember, my air, I think, possibly. And I am able to do this because Andrea wished to save her own life, so I removed you with her consent. And so now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to witness the destruction of the human race. But when I return, I would like to fish through your memories, because I can see in your memories is somebody called the Doctor. And imagine what would happen if the Doctor never existed. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to sift your memories, and I'm going to use them to locate this Doctor. Which is funny, isn't it? Because then we get the episode Turn Left when one of the Trickster's brigade, the Time Beetle, does an alternate reality where what if the Doctor never died? So it's Andrea's party time. Everyone's at Andrea's party, even Clyde, who's giving a card on behalf of his mum. That's where, the mum reference comes in. Alan and Chrissy are there. Andrea's reminiscing about the 60s because Clyde wants to put some newer music on and she's playing a song from the 60s. Alan is giving her a lot of hard stares. Sarah Jane is now reunited with Maria. They're like hugging each other. They're trying not to be resigned to their fate of just, being locked in limbo while the world explodes. And they're trying to come up with some sort of plan, but there's really not a lot they can do from limbo. But it's at this point that Clyde, at the party, gets a call about a meteor on the news. We get a zoom on Alan's face. So many zooms. As he recalls Maria talking about this meteor. And he's like, okay, right, things are going bad. I'm the only one who can remember any of this. I need to do something about this. So he corners Andrea in the kitchen. He interrogates her. She's, deflecting it all the way. I don't know what you're on about. Until he pulls out the cube. And she thinks that it's her cube. She's like, where did you get that? And so that gets her off kilter enough to confess to what she's done. And it's her confession is sort of interspersed with flashbacks to the 60s as it's happening, of her falling from the pier and clinging on while Sarah Jane is reaching down and trying to grab her, and then she hears the voice of the Trickster offering her a deal, and she accepts, and then Sarah's the one hanging on, and then Sarah Jane falls off, There's a scream, and she falls into the water. And the trickster's hand comes into frame and hands Andrea, young 13-year-old Andrea, this box and says that she will forget so that she will go on to live a full life. And the Grasky is there with the trickster. And the trickster says that she will forget all this, but when waking or sleeping, he will be with her. And Andrea explains that she remembers that the accident happened, but she forgets everything else, and she can't even remember where she got the cube. She just knows that she had to hang on to it. And Alan is very angry that the second that Maria came in and made her remember everything that she, repressed and put into this cube, that instead of, putting things right, she immediately struck another deal to get Maria removed and just did it all over again. But, by now they've gone up into the attic. The trickster appears before her in the mirror again. And Alan can't see any of this. He just sees her talking to a blank mirror. And she wants him to send Alan away now, because she cannot bring herself to face what she has done, and she just wants to go back to forgetting no matter how many people she sends away, even though it's sort of this cycle of the more people I send away, the more people find out. And, the more people I need to send away to stop that. And it's horrible, and she's all teary, and she rips the cube from Alan's hand when Grask teleports in and chases him out the door. So Chrissy sees him running down the stairs, sees the Grask running down the stairs after him. So Chrissy has seen the Grask. And we need to deal with the fact that Chrissy has seen the Grask. I don't think the episode deals with that fact, but we need to recall that. We need to remember that. Chrissy has now seen an alien. We get a shot of the outside, and it's not the outside of the house itself, but there's a wall that's sort of around the house, and that's got 21 on it, and it's what is the consistency in the show with the house number, for goodness sake. I'm renaming this podcast. It's now 14/22 Bannerman Road. It's not. They'll get more consistent as it goes on. They will settle on 13. But goodness me. So Alan is properly sprinted off because the Grass, he's only got little legs. But then, so the Grass is sort of standing in the road. We see Alan come back into frame on his skateboards into the Grass, knocks him down. I did not think we would get a call back to Alan's skateboarding skills. I thought that was just, a little fun bit of disarming flavour at the start of the episode. But no, nothing is safe in Sarah Jane Adventures. Everything we will call back to. So it's now 10 minutes on the news till meteor impact. It will impact directly with the UK as well, which is brilliant. Everybody runs outside. They can spot the meteor in the sky. Andrea starts to recall Maria saying that Sarah Jane is the one who can stop the meteor. Meanwhile, Alan has tied up the Grask. He's hauled it into his house, has tied it up, and is threatening it to bring Maria back. So it does. Maria's beamed back in. All her photos come back. Sarah Jane is left in limbo, wondering what on earth has happened where Maria's gone. Chrissy, suddenly all her memories of Maria come back. And she's like, how could I forget Maria? She's standing out in the road. Andrea's out there, so sees that Maria has come back, sees Chrissy remember her, and Andrea runs off. And Alan then uses the same sort of beaming, mechanism that he used to bring Maria back. Maria's like, use it again and bring Sarah Jane back. But they don't see her anywhere. And they go, well, hang on, maybe she's been brought back to her attic. So Alan and Maria run off up to the attic of 13 Bannerman Road, leaving the grass tied up on the floor. But he manages to struggle his way out of the ropes and beam away with the thing on his belt. Andrea is up in the attic, begging the cube not to let her die, because she knows, oh, Maria's back now. Oh, this is, Alan knows. It's all going wrong. And she sees Sarah Jane in the mirror as Maria and Alan run by Chrissy, who's still standing outside watching this meteor. Chrissy is apologizing to Maria for letting her down, but she just sort of runs right past, because, Chrissy thinks she's going to die. She's staring death in the face. Maria has no time for this, runs right past with Alan into the attic. And so we have Andrea, we have Alan, we have Maria in the attic, we have Sarah Jane in the mirror. Sarah Jane saying, I cannot come back while Andrea is here. Andrea is in my place. I need Andrea to go for me to return. And so they are all trying to convince Andrea to rescind her deal with the trickster. They say, look, the meteor's going to hit anyway in a few minutes' time. So you'll die here. Perhaps the universe says you're meant to die. And she takes, huge offense at that. And she's, I'm meant to die, am I? Who says I'm meant to die? And Sarah Jane says, well, look, you being here has removed my son from the world. You need to give him a chance at life. And she says, oh, well, okay, well, I give him a chance. What's going to happen to my entire life then? I'm going to be forgotten, am I? And Sarah Jane says that her death, witnessing Andrea's death when she was 13, taught her so much about how precious life is that she is never forgotten, because she is what motivates Sarah to fight for humanity and to save the human race. The trickster appears behind them, and I think this is the first time that somebody actually calls him the trickster. Alan says, oh, is that him? Is that this trickster? So if you just watch the episodes, Alan is the one to christen him the trickster, because when he's talking to Sarah Jane, he just says, oh, I have nothing, I have no self. But apparently this is, I don't have an actual source on this, but it was just written on something, I don't know, TV tropes or something, that apparently this is a production error, and there's a cut scene where the grass tells him that this is the trickster, I work for the trickster or whatever, but they cut that. So now, in the canon of the show, Alan is the one to give him his name, but it makes a lot more sense that he's already come up with the name, because in other episodes he seems to have adopted this name for himself, and it seems weird that he just do that from what Alan calls him. But he's trying to convince Andrea to keep up the deal, but she knows now that, she's going to die either way. Ultimately, saving herself for a few minutes, it's not worth destroying the human race. And she says, if there's one thing I can do with my life, it's that I can stop the trickster. He says, well, then you will die. And she says, well, I've been dead for 40 years. And she throws the cube at the mirror, and we flash back to Andrea hanging from the pier. She tells Sarah Jane to remember her. She falls off. Back in the attic, Sarah Jane and Luke return. Clyde is shouting, we need you to save us. We get, Mrs. Smith, I need you. There's no fanfare because it's emergency measures time. He deflects the meteor, and its path curves and it kind of flies overhead and flies away, and it looks a bit naff CGI wise, but let's ignore that, and let's ignore all of the physics involved with this. You just ignore the physics of the meteor. It's just crisis averted. Okay, we don't have time to go into all that. And Clyde is like, oh, hey, Sarah Jane's done it. Because, you know, the second Sarah Jane returns, obviously Clyde's got his memories of Sarah Jane back. So it's like, hey, Sarah Jane saved us all. Chrissy is immediately back to being dismissy. Chrissy is dismissy, and she's like, how on earth could Sarah Jane have had anything to do with this? And we get, you know, Luke, you're back, and he's like, was I away? He doesn't even recall, which is weird because they say that he's in limbo somewhere just far away. It's really weird the way that he was removed because he wasn't like the target of it. He's just sort of a consequence. Very odd, but anyway, he's back. Clyde runs in up to the attic and spots Alan. And Alan is here like, well, okay, I've seen aliens today. I've seen a computer come out your wall. I've seen a meteor be averted. I need some answers for this. Roll credits. Well, and then we get the next time bit, and the next time bit is an episode called The Lost Boy. And as if we haven't had enough of like messing with reality and whatnot, we get an almost, you know, that episode of Sherlock where there's like Moriarty trying to convince everyone that he's just like a paid actor or whatever, and like Sherlock is coming up with all his crimes to try and solve them and make himself look good. In this one, in the like preview that we see of this, we've got people for the series finale. We've got people being like, "Oh yeah, Luke's our son Ashley. This mad Sarah Jane woman has kidnapped him." I'm like, "Oh, okay, so more lies and reality distortion and whatnot. Look forward to that one. Let us have a break. Let us recover." Goodness me. So, wow, I think this episode was not necessarily the strongest Trickster episode. I think he gets stronger. Because I think it relied on an awful lot of coincidence, but I think it is iconic for introducing him. I love the Trickster as a horrible villain. I need to emphasize, like, he is like raspy voice. He's just a mouth, but his mouth is like full of these weird sharp teeth. And he's like a hell creature. He's like the devil, like coming around making deals with people to that they think is good, but like have terrible consequences. And you can't ever really get rid of him. And goodness me, what a villain! What a villain the Trickster is, eh? So join me next time for the series finale of series 1. And yeah, watch this one. Watch this one. Find it somewhere where you can. You know, buy a DVD or whatever if they're still selling them. And be terrified. And then join me for the next one. Next time. Till then, bye for now.